an agnostic and a Buddhist coming to the Lord.
Welcome to the Wordsmith Forge Christian Fiction Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Baines. Sometimes God takes us on a journey so unexpected that we only understand it when we look back. My guest today is author Thomas Britten. Thomas grew up in England, studied philosophy, spent years searching for answers, then found himself halfway around the world in Thailand. There, through a series of events only God could orchestrate, an agnostic English teacher met Christ, found his calling, and eventually became both a pastor and a novelist. In this first part of our conversation, Thomas shares his remarkable testimony, the experiences that shaped his faith, and how those experiences eventually led him to write his Christian dystopian novel, The Final Witness. If you've ever wondered how God can use unexpected detours to prepare us for His purpose, I think you'll enjoy this conversation. Audience, settle in and join me as we welcome Thomas Britten to the Wordsmith Forge Christian Fiction Podcast. Audience, won't you help me welcome Thomas Britten to the Wordsmith Forge Christian Fiction Podcast. Thomas, I'm so happy that you're able to join us today, and I'd like you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, where to start? I'm English.
Oh,
that's probably a good start.
I couldn't tell.
But I haven't always lived in England. I lived for 16 years in Thailand.
Oh, wow.
Southeast Asia.
Yes, sir.
Before I went to Thailand, I moved out there in 2002. Before that, I had studied at two universities. My undergraduate was at a university called Manchester Metropolitan, and I studied philosophy and creative writing.
Oh.
And then my postgraduate degree was at UCL down in London, University College London, and I focused on philosophy of the mind. At the time, I wasn't a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would describe myself as having been an atheist, perhaps more agnostic. So after 7 years of getting into a lot of debt and just really learning how to ask more questions and not really arriving at any solid answers, I moved out. Well, I didn't move out to Thailand, not intentionally. I went to Thailand initially for fun,
Mm-hmm.
for a break, for a year out. But it wasn't too long until in a small village on the Thai-Burma border, I met my wife through a group I was working for as an English teacher. So that was a Burmese. Actually, they were back then. Aung San Suu Kyi was under house arrest, and I sort of fell in with this group by accident. And the chairman of the group asked if I would teach some of his lads who had been in the jungle fighting the Myanmar army, if I would teach English for some of those lads that had come over to the Thai side for recuperation, healing, medical attention if they'd stepped on a landmine or something like that.
Mm.
If they'd been shot, if they were having medical treatment. So I was staying with them at a small village called Mae Sarayang. And as I was teaching, I would go out in the evening, let my hair down with some of my friends. And to be honest, there weren't many places to go to in Mae Sarayang. One or two, one or two restaurants.
Yeah.
So anyway, I met my wife. She was out there working in one of the restaurants, and so within 2 weeks, we'd done the cultural marriage. I can't say my parents approved, but they weren't there. So it all happened. It all happened very quickly, Michael. And that's really where my new life in Thailand began. And then, just to bring you up to speed, I had a family very quickly. Not the conventional way of doing things, but there we go. So I found myself in a foreign land, trying to speak a foreign language, not getting very far with that, eating different sorts of food and things like that. But anyway, feeling, I suppose, somewhat dislocated from everything that was familiar back at home. And to cut a long story short, those are the circumstances that the Lord used really to bring me to Him, which happened through an American missionary working in Chiang Mai, because I moved the family to Chiang Mai to get a job as an English teacher. So we met this Baptist missionary. He was church planting out there, and through a series of, I would say, unlikely events and coincidences, but of course, God had His hand in everything. I got saved, and so did my wife. Not long after me. So
great, yeah.
An agnostic and a Buddhist coming to the Lord, and then that's where my new journey. My journey of faith began.
Yeah, the first thing I think of is, it's kind of interesting. You had to go all the way to Thailand for someone in the West that was there for maybe not to plant a church in England, but kind of that's where he wound up planting it through you.
Yeah.
So, boy, you can't figure out what God's got in mind. But
sure
you can look back. You can look back and see it.
Absolutely. But yeah. So, I was baptized, started serving in the local church plant, and as I say, this American missionaries ministry. And then the Lord put it upon my heart to come back to the UK and do ministry here, back in my home country, a country that was once, world renowned for sending out missionaries, but today is in dire need of missionaries here. So yeah, I'm now serving as a pastor in a local church in a town which is pretty much in the very heart of England. So if you were to look at the UK on a map and pinpoint the heart of England, that's where you would find the town that we live in.
I see.
Called Market Harborough.
Well, it's kind of interesting. You're the second person from the UK. I mean, the last guy I interviewed was from the UK, and I think it's fun to get authors from outside the US. I've got South Africa, Nigeria, South Korea, and the UK.
Wow,
that's interesting.
Fantastic.
I do wonder, do you have an idea of how the UK is feeling about Christianity? Are they starting to spark again?
It's a good question. I know that there has been an uptick in, church attendance. But it's the Catholics have seen an uptick in their church attendance. Evangelicals, and when I say evangelical, I'm thinking more of the charismatic side of the church. I know that there's been an uptick in their churches. It's difficult to know if it's people seeking just how can I phrase it? If people are just seeking some sort of answer to the problems that are that have recently come around because of, well, I mean, you go back to COVID, you look at the wars now going on. I think people are questioning, certainly my generation and maybe older generations, the stability that we knew.
Yeah.
During the 80s, the 90s, the early 2010s, that era seems to have come to a dramatic end. So whether people are, genuinely seeking, Christ and to have their lives transformed, it's difficult to say, really. Obviously Christ in his ministry was followed by many people. And while he would do the miracles and cast out the demons and feed them and do all of those things that pandered to their, to their needs, if you like, their physical needs and emotional needs, he had a lot of people interested in his ministry. But when it whittled down to, Christ's teachings, fewer and fewer people were really interested in listening to what he had to say. We'll see.
I know that our own church is focusing on training up some Gen Z people to minister to Gen Z. And so we have a fairly lively bunch of people that just makes my heart feel good to see young men step forward and to see young men in church, and they weren't driven there by their parents or by their girlfriends or by their wives.
Yeah.
These young men are there soaking up the gospel, and that creates a fairly active youth ministry. So we certainly hope that it continues on. But you've covered a lot of my questions that I have on my teleprompter. I know what I'm going to say, but you don't. I think the next two questions are interesting, and it will kind of shine a little bit of light on who Thomas Britten is. So, Thomas, what are three of your favorite songs?
I don't listen to music as much as I did, but I'm going to say a couple of songs that I grew up listening to a lot, and then maybe one that I sing a lot now. But when I was growing up, I listened to Space Oddity by David Bowie. I found that song quite fascinating, with that sort of that theme of exploration, space exploration. Yeah. As a Christian now, it's obviously a very lonely song, and there's really no hope in it. As Major Tom seems to be cut off from, the civilization on Earth.
Yes.
And then they lose sort of, contact with Major Tom out there. But nevertheless, I was somebody that enjoyed, watching Star Trek and things like that. So that's certainly one of the songs. Another song is Bridge Over Troubled Water, Simon and Garfunkel.
Yep.
It's a song I've recently started listening to again a few times. I like the theme of loyalty, just being there for someone when they desperately need it, and being that bridge for them. There's one or two things going on in my life at the moment where that song seems very applicable.
Right.
Am I allowed a hymn?
Of course, yeah. Sure, whatever floats your boat.
John Newton's Amazing Grace. The story of redemption is just resonates every time I sing it.
That song is so much more special once you know who the author of that was and what he did.
Yeah.
Before Christ came into his life.
Indeed.
It is an Amazing Grace.
Yeah. And especially when you hear it played by the Royal Scots Dragoons on bagpipes.
Oh my, yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you are you familiar with the song House of the Rising Sun?
Oh yes.
Think about singing Amazing Grace to that tune.
Okay.
And it works. And in some ways, I think it might reach some people that were really big rock fans back when House of the Rising Sun came out. But
oh wow,
yeah. It's kind of interesting. Well, you mentioned Star Wars. Is that one of your favorite movies? What are three of your favorite movies?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all enjoyed Star Wars as when we were growing up. I wouldn't say it makes the top three. I think film wise, I would say Master and Commander, the Russell Crowe film. I don't know if you've seen that, but I highly recommend it. About a British naval officer during the Napoleonic Wars, and they're fighting a French ship on the on more on your side of the Atlantic. But again, it's just a great film regarding sort of character study, and again, themes of loyalty and courage.
Right.
And I think, a film that every sort of young male adult should set aside a time to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Master and Commander. Let me think. I also enjoy Interstellar. I think that was very good, the Christopher Nolan film. Dealing with, again, self-sacrifice as the astronauts go to find a habitable place for humanity, since Earth is suffering, ecological collapse. I know how hard it is to leave a family, so that's really why the film resonated with me, because there was a time when I had to visit America and leave my family in Thailand for a number of months. So that's a great film. Cool. Yeah. Well, I'll probably leave it at that for now.
That's great. I can't ask those two questions without thinking of Monty Python's Search of the Holy Grail.
Oh, yes.
It's like, what is your favorite color? It's kind of wacky.
It is.
So what sparked your calling to write Christian fiction?
Well, there's probably all sorts of different elements and what was going on in my life at the time coming together. I'd always had a keen interest in writing.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to school, I just remember filling my notebooks with stories, whereas other, my friends in the same class would write maybe a paragraph. I'd hand in a story of 10 pages or more. And I did a creative writing course at university.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to write children's books for a while, but I felt I didn't really have anything crucial to write about for a number of years. So it just went on the back burner.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, I was out in Thailand. I got saved, had a family out there. And then, as I'm sort of learning more about, the Bible, and learning more about the grace of God in Jesus Christ, and how God is the God of creation. He's a creative God, and because of those initial sort of, that initial desire to be a writer, going back to my childhood, I think all of these things just came together, and we moved back to the UK. And I'm in the ministry, so I had a little bit of spare time. And so I sort of sat down and thought, well, let's try writing a book. I'm told that everyone has a story within them.
They do, yes.
It's a question of, taking some time and self-examination, and just starting the process of being a little bit disciplined to sit down and start writing. And that happened a few years back now, back in 2018, 2019. And so really my first novel is really a culmination of all of those things. And, I ultimately it's the, I think it's the Spirit of God as well, giving the inspiration and the determination to write this story, and the desire really to reach, young adults with the gospel, not necessarily just young adults, but really anyone that would take the time to read it, to encourage, believers to be firm in their faith, whatever circumstances they find themselves in, and whatever opposition they have in their lives, but also perhaps to introduce the gospel to non-believers. And so it's born really out of a pastoral heart. And so I think all of those elements come into play in producing it.
Is there a Bible truth or passage that anchors the book we're going to talk about?
Yeah, I guess there is. I mean, ultimately, Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." That there's no other way to the Father but through Him.
Right.
And I suppose ultimately that, Jesus has said that. What do we do with that? And are we willing to stake everything on who Jesus revealed Himself to be? And so I think that really underpins the novel. That ultimately it's a vehicle for the gospel. But I was very conscious of doing my best to write an entertaining book as well. At the end of the day, a storyteller has to relate a story.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the people, want to enjoy that experience. So I would say yes. Obviously, there are other Bible verses that I cite in the novel, you know, and but David, the protagonist, is really ultimately responding to Jesus Christ in his life.
As you were writing, did you feel like, well, I could say this, but it's maybe a little too gritty, or did anything that you were working with seem to collide with the biblical standards that you're trying to maintain?
You know, I was always conscious that ultimately, you know, I'm being speculative with future events. But I think as artists, we know the boundaries that we can, you know, be creative within.
Right.
And that's very important. And obviously, because we're dealing with scripture, we're dealing with the revealed word of God. You have to have the highest regard for that. And you know, I just hope that, you know, somehow I've conveyed something of biblical truth accurately enough to resonate with people through writing this story. But I'll let other people be the judge of that.
The Final Witness.
Yes, sir.
If people are ready to find out what book you've written, would you tell us a little bit about the book?
Yeah, the book is it's a dystopian Christian fiction novel set in London. London is a very dreary place, I must admit, in my book. I mean, it's not on a sunny day today. I mean, you could go to London and quite enjoy it, but in my book, it's a very dreary place. In no small part due to the heavy socialist government that's taken over. So it's set slightly in the future, and society has been divided up into different color bands. So David, the protagonist, who comes back from Thailand to live with his aunt because his parents die in a car crash in Thailand.
Oh.
He's given a red band by the officials, and that's the lowest band. And as a red band, he is denied access to, you know, certain public services, hospital treatment, things like that. You know, maybe certain shops wouldn't serve him, things like that. And so, if you work your way up the rainbow, then the violet band is the richest category. The violets are the movers and shakers of the government system, and so the different bands have different responsibilities and duties. And so it's the idea really that society has been very much divided up, which is what humans tend to do.
Yeah.
We divide people all the time into categories, you know, whether it's the caste system in India, for example, or whether it's just our own sort of, you know, class-based society, which we have here in the UK still. In America, perhaps it's more economic, you know, but there's all sorts of divisions. So I really wanted to contrast that theme of the book with the fact that, you know, God doesn't deal with us in the same way. You know, that the gospel is available to all, and that we are, you know, relinquished of all those divisions and categories in Christ. And
Definitely, yeah.
so I think that was one thing that I wanted to convey in the book. So David, he turns up on his aunt's doorstep, and the story begins from there, really. And he goes to school, whereas formerly in Thailand he was homeschooled. He has to go to public school for the first time as a red band, and there he encounters a system within this school that is very oppressive, and it's a system that will control, that seeks to control truth. Whereas the idea of education is it's the idea of education, I would assume, is for people to learn and to, examine, different ideas and to experiment with different ideas and to arrive at a knowledge of the truth. But now that's all flipped on its head, and the education is basically indoctrination. So you might say that there's elements of, George Orwell's 1984 in there, and so David really is put on the spot in this environment. So it's the idea of really taking a young Christian and putting him in extraordinary circumstances. And ultimately, this is the refiner's fire in his life. Now, it takes him a long time to realize that. But it's one thing for a child to grow up, in a Christian environment and to learn truths about God. And many young Christians have a good foundation that way. I understand it. But that relationship with Christ isn't really refined until you have to experience, the challenges and the difficulties. So he's out of his comfort zone, completely out of his comfort zone. But ultimately, while there is initially resentment about his parents dying and whatnot, and having to move to back to London, he comes to a realization that ultimately, this is God dealing with him. And is he prepared to, stake everything for what is the truth?
Well, what a fascinating beginning to Thomas Britten's story. From England to Thailand, from agnosticism to faith in Christ, and from pastor to novelist. Thomas has shown us how God often uses circumstances we never would have chosen to prepare us for the work He has planned. We've also begun exploring the world of the final witness, where a young Christian named David finds himself living in a society determined to divide people into categories and control what they are allowed to believe. Next week, Thomas and I continue the conversation as we move from the story itself to the ideas behind it. We'll discuss truth, government control, cultural pressure, freedom of expression, and what it means for Christians to stand firm when the cost of doing so continues to rise. Until then, I'd encourage you to reflect on this question. How has God used unexpected turns in your own life to bring you closer to Him? Thank you for joining us today. Please subscribe, share this episode with a friend, and consider becoming a paid subscriber on Substack to gain access to our subscriber companion and other exclusive content. This is Mike Baines, out.